Hi, welcome to the Queen and I podcast. This is Bruce Naylor.
And the Queen, Cindee Naylor.
And our show is about building loving and trusting relationships for husbands and wives and sharing a laugh or two. So sit back, relax, enjoy this show.
This is the Queen and I podcast, episode number 24. Let's get intimate.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Queen and I podcast. This is episode 24, and joining me today is the lovely and effervescent Queen herself. Cindee, how you doing, honey?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I couldn't do better. And I just want to remind the audience that the show notes are available at cfpn.tv/Q24. Got a joke for you, Queen?
Okay.
This old guy is 84 years old. He wants to get a complete physical. So the doctor says, well, part of the physical, I need to get a sperm count on you. So he hands him a jar. He says, take that home, give me a sample, and bring it back. So a couple days later, the old guy comes back. The jar is empty. Doctor says, what's the problem? And the old guy says, well, yeah, I got it home, and I tried with my left hand, and nothing would happen. I tried with my right hand, nothing would happen. Asked my wife to help me out. She used her left hand, nothing would happen. Her right hand, nothing would happen. Her teeth in, nothing would happen. Her teeth out, nothing would happen. She even went and got the neighbor lady to try to help. About this time, the doctor's just dying, you know. His face is all red, and he goes, and no matter what we tried, we couldn't get that lid off. See? Really gets dirty minds. We're talking about intimacy today, and I guess the first thing I thought I'd do is, give you my take, which I'm not a licensed anything, about intimacy. I was telling the Queen, I think there's two basic kinds of intimacy. There is an emotional intimacy, and then there's physical intimacy. We're going to talk a little bit about both into today's episode of The Queen and I. Let's talk about the emotional intimacy. Queen, what does that mean to you? So, Queen?
Well, to me, it means that we're connected emotionally. I can share anything with you, that I might be afraid to share with someone else.
Well, I think you're spot on. I really do. I think you're spot on. Because you can have an emotional connection with somebody, but not have a physical connection with them.
That is true.
Okay.
That is true.
But you know what? Emotional connection is based on trust, right? Mm-hmm. The ability to trust somebody, not to harm you in some way.
Right.
Whether it's your feelings or what have you.
Or judge you.
Right. Exactly. And,
right.
I think judgment's kind of a form of harm, but okay.
Well, it would be, right.
But it's still, that emotional connection is a powerful thing. Mm-hmm. And when you have that emotional intimacy, and then you're in a loving, trusting, committed relationship, and you can combine that with a physical form of intimacy, then you have got something really, really amazing. At least I think so.
Oh, I agree.
I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I hope not. But, it is such a great thing to have that level of trust that you can have a great sex life and you can still be connected on a very emotional level with one another. See, people think guys are like these unemotional machines, they all want the same thing, which is sort of true. I kid. I jest. No, I think for guys, we also need that emotional connection to have. You can have a love life and not be in a committed relationship, but it's still empty. You're still missing something.
Right.
And that is when you become a couple, when you get into that trusting, loving, committed relationship with one another, you can kind of, relax. And you can kind of begin to learn from one another with it. And you can combine those emotions with the experience.
Right. You can actually enjoy.
I hope. Okay, well, let's talk about some of these different things. We're learning about how to trust each other with both our bodies and our minds. Mm-hmm. And that's what builds the intimate relationship with a couple. You said, and this was a quote of yours, you got to give yourself permission.
Oh, I agree. I think sometimes, especially maybe the ladies, okay, we don't seem to give ourselves permission to enjoy it. And you do. You have to.
Is that based because of maybe things like your upbringing?
I think in the beginning it's your upbringing,
so
your
it could
baggage.
be from your religious faith. It could be from your parents.
Oh, it could be a lot of things, right.
Okay, so you have all this stuff. And so do you think that's harder for women than for men? Do you think men also have these sort of issues going on?
I can't really speak for you guys because, I wouldn't have a clue how you feel on that.
We do have kind of a double standard when it comes to having a boy or a girl. We kind of give boys a pass, I think, when it comes to that kind of thing. But we're much more cautious with our daughters.
Right.
There's jokes about, well, my daughter can't date till she's 35 and that kind of thing. So we tend to maybe treat our daughters a lot differently than boys. So maybe do you think that might have something to do with the baggage, just that dynamic there?
Well, yeah. I think probably it does. But I think that we tend to feel guilty about things. Sometimes,
really?
Yeah.
Women do?
I did. Well, yeah, when I was younger, I'm sure.
Can I press you on that a little bit? What is it that would make you feel guilty?
Well,
and we're talking in the realm of intimacy.
Yeah,
here.
I know what we're talking about. Let's say in the beginning of a relationship, there's things that maybe young ladies are afraid to try.
Okay.
Okay. That there's some guilt there that doesn't seem quite like it should. That's right.
Okay,
to do.
I follow you.
Okay.
I follow what you're saying. So that's a form of baggage.
Well, it's definitely a form of baggage,
or it's simply your value system.
Right.
So you basically have to say, okay, it's going to be okay. I give myself permission to enjoy, having a sex life.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I suppose in the beginning.
See, guys don't have to do that.
Right. Well, I'm not saying we all have to do that. I'm just saying that there probably are times where women are, I don't know, maybe they're just so busy doing things that they really don't enjoy the moment that they should. Like in my grandmother's day, okay, it was mostly a duty.
Right. No, right.
And
they certainly didn't talk about sex publicly.
Oh, no.
And there was certainly no, of course, that was a time there was no such thing as birth control.
Right.
There was no sex education.
Right.
There was no adult material reading. Well, there was, but it was very limited. Okay. And there wasn't the internet. There wasn't an explosion of sex information out there. None of this sort of thing. So it was kind of like, mom passing down her pearls of wisdom to her daughter. Yeah. And it was the talk about your wifely duty.
Right.
And so that would basically sum it up, your wifely duty, rather than something, that makes you, because we're all born sexual beings. And we're all a clean slate when we're born. It's only when people start putting stuff into our heads, we start kind of getting screwed up.
That's true. Yeah, that's the right word, too.
Because, sex is a very natural thing, but yet we get our heads just filled with all these messages, and now we're expected to be as sexual a creature and enjoy after we've been told for years, no, this is bad. So that could be a whole show in and of itself. It really could.
It really could.
I agree with you. You need to give yourself permission. And you're saying, I guess, that's more important for the ladies than for the guys, because the guys, I don't think we really go through that because of that whole double standard. We don't have dad, pulling us off to the side going, well, yeah, we still have the background, whether if you're faith or what religion. And so we still have those messages going on. So I can see where you do need to give yourself that permission to say, I'm going to enjoy a loving and intimate relationship with this person, my wife. Another thing is, I think really important for intimacy is you don't take your partner for granted. And what I mean by that is you just can't assume that we're going to be intimate whenever I feel like it.
That's true.
Okay. There is still, like the Queen and I, we both still go out on dates. I still court her. I still try to, shave and put on cologne and all these things and try to present myself in an attractive manner as possible. Yeah, are there times I'm ratting around with a scruffy beard? And yeah, there is. But I don't just take for granted that she's always available to be intimate with me whenever I want her to be. The Queen, on the other hand, figures I'm pretty much ready to go at any time.
I guess there's that double standard.
Yeah, there's another double standard. Oh, you guys are like microwave ovens, just hit the on button and you're good to go. And, unfortunately, the sad part is that used to be pretty much true. And then middle age came along. It's like, well, now we need to talk about this. It's a little bit different ball game. But yeah, that's. I think that is very, very true. You do not take each other for granted in that way.
No, okay. I agree.
You got to keep each other interested in one another. We've talked about this before, and it really is true. Mm-hmm. And I think it just bears repeating, just like I'm doing right now. So we're trying to do this as nicely as we can. Okay, another thing about establishing long-term intimacy, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier. Let's touch on a little bit further, and that's bringing baggage in, and not just your upbringing or your faith, but there's also could be things that's happened to you in the past that could have been traumatic. Mm-hmm. It could prohibit you from achieving real sexual satisfaction, real intimacy because of whatever's happened to you in the past. To me, I guess you would want to deal with this head on, rather than let it creep into the relationship.
Right. I think that a lot of people let it creep into the relationship when they should have really dealt with it before they had a relationship.
And that could involve, getting counseling, perhaps.
Yeah. I think if it's that traumatic, I think, yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's traumatic to one person isn't necessarily traumatic to another, but there's certain things, obviously that would be very traumatic. Mm-hmm. Rape, incest, sexual abuse. All those kind of things, that would be hard to get around.
Right. And those are special issues that you definitely would need counseling for, and your partner would need to know about it.
And you should, I would think, need to have those addressed before you really got deep into a committed relationship. Or at least work through that with your partner together with a counselor or what have you. Right? So that is also a form of baggage. But, it is... To me, a lot of times we give kids the message that, sex before marriage is wrong, masturbation is wrong, all these things you shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And then when you get married, suddenly it's all okay. Mm-hmm. And I can see where that causes real problems for people. Because if you've been raised your whole life to think that, this is something bad that you shouldn't do, but now... Once you get married, everything is A-OK, except A, B, C, and D, let's say. All these rules, I can see where this could be considered a form of baggage that when you do get into the bedroom together is going to cause real emotional problems and problems with being emotionally connected and as well as physically. Mm-hmm. So... Unfortunately, there are some great therapists out there and great resources for people to work through these issues.
Right.
To help bring it together. Because, when you're going to be married for the rest of your life, that could be a long time. And you want to have as much fun as you can, certainly in that regards. This is something I thought up, and the Queen agreed. And that is when you are initiating intimacy. What you don't want to you don't want to be forceful about things. You don't want to try to cajole people into doing things, your partner. And you definitely don't want to use guilt or anger to get what you want in the bedroom.
Yes. Neither one of those work for me. And none of those
do they work for anybody?
No, they don't. But okay. I think there's people out there that don't realize it.
There are, and they do everything from passive aggression to silent treatment to rejection. The last thing on the world you want to do is reject that beautiful woman because, you want her to try something and she refuses to do it.
Right.
You have to respect her and you have to respect her limits.
Right.
And ladies, same thing.
I was going to say, absolutely the same thing.
It goes both ways. And here's another rule. Don't be greedy.
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't cover this too much, but hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Right?
Uh-huh. What do we mean?
Well, what we mean is that, you shouldn't be selfish in intimacy, whether physical or emotionally. You should reciprocate.
Oh, okay.
What do you think I mean, Gwen?
I wasn't sure.
Oh, my goodness. Let's not go there. You know what I mean. You all know what I mean here. You do. You have, your pleasure is just as important as mine.
Yes.
And so that's all about reciprocation, taking your time and learning. That's another point. You should never quit trying to learn one another. Mm-hmm. Okay, never assume that your partner would not enjoy something new or different. Maybe it's a massage, right? A nice massage. It shouldn't be rushed. I mean, really, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's right. It should not be rushed. Not a massage.
You don't want to say, "Oh, gee, I've had shots that took longer than that." Well, you get my point. But you should never quit learning about your partner, both emotionally and physically, things that they enjoy and what they don't.
Mm-hmm. And the more relaxed she is, the more enjoyment she's going to get out of the experience.
Well, you see, that's the beauty to me of being in a committed relationship when you talk about that, because as you learn one another over the years, you know what one person likes and what they don't like, right? You know what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. I think that makes the whole experience a whole lot better. Mm-hmm. You're not going through that when you're together for the first while. You know how exciting everything is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Your heart's racing, you're perspiring. It's for me, right? You're perspiring, you're nervous, you're anxious, excited, titillated, all these things. And then when you've been together for a while, that kind of dies down over time. But it becomes, in my opinion, the sex gets better as you're together longer, because you do learn and those anxieties go away. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be anything, as anxious about things.
Right. You can enjoy yourself.
You can enjoy yourself, and you should enjoy yourself, because we are all born, again, sexual creatures.
Right.
And so hopefully you're going to have a long, healthy life to enjoy it. There are some other things on there. You know what? Speaking of that, scheduling. I put this down on my list. Now, if anybody knows what it's like to not have opportunities for intimacy, it would be the Queen and I. We had a whole year to rediscover what it was like not to be able to scratch that itch. So let's say when we was in the mood.
Well, we had to be creative.
We had to be very creative.
Very.
And we actually almost had to schedule it.
Yeah, and we don't like scheduling.
Because you hear a lot of couples talk about, well, we just don't have time like we used to, when we're newlyweds. We got kids, we got jobs, we got a house to take care of, yards to mow, laundry to do. The thing is I believe this. There's an old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. I believe there's some truth to that statement. I really do.
Oh, I agree.
And I think it's because the intimacy, number one, because the emotional intimacy is tied to that physical intimacy in a marriage, in the context of a marriage. Mm-hmm. And if you remove that intimate component, and everything is more task-oriented and a working, what happens, it turns into a working relationship rather than a loving relationship.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think you begin to lose those sexual thoughts about your partner, and more about, you have more work-related thoughts about that partner. You start to look at them differently. Mm-hmm. So the cure for that is to make a sex life an important part of your agenda. Even if you have to schedule it, like every Wednesday at this time, we'll squeeze it in there. But you have to. If not, I think you begin to lose those sexy feelings towards one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I was wrong about that, but I don't think so.
Right.
And it can be tough, because maybe you're busy when the schedule says, okay, it's time, and you're really not in the mood. You've got to make yourself in the mood. You've got to work at it like anything else in life worth having.
Mm-hmm. And it's actually good for your health.
Yes, it is. Oh, my, I must be Charles Atlas, man.
Well, it is. It's good for your heart rate and your blood pressure and all sorts of things.
You know, there's not a doctor out there in the world now that will tell you, gee, sex is bad for you. No.
So maybe one of those workout periods that you go to the gym for,
I think
you can skip.
You mean that doesn't count as exercise?
Well, of course it does.
Thank you very much. There you go. Oh, well, you know, I mean, it's a whole lot more fun than a treadmill, folks.
It is to me.
Here's another point.
Okay.
Growing old together is cool. Now, the reason I say that is when me and the Queen first got together, she would say, "Would you think you're still going to love me when I get old?" And I'd say, "Yeah." You know, I look at her today, 21 years later, and she's still the same lovely little gal that I met. In fact, she's even more lovely today than when I met her. And I don't notice the slight gray of the hair or a wrinkle here or there, and hopefully she doesn't do the same to me. Because we age together, we look at each other with a frame of reference, this reference, and we don't notice those things because we are aging together, and that's one of the beautiful things about growing old together.
I agree.
Okay, so you learn to love the whole package and not just the outer appearance. See, 90% of sex is right up here in the brain.
Yep.
That's where it's all at. The other 10% is the rest of the body. 90% is up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that, well, from a personal perspective, growing old together is the way to go. That's the purpose, I think, of a long-term, committed, loving, trusting relationship, to build that life together. And that life includes growing old together.
Yeah.
And being there for one another. Another point is to make sure that you respect your partner's health. Here's another thing. You know, as you can't necessarily physically do the same things you did when you're 50 that when you could do when you were in your 20s. For the most of us, anyway.
It's just
I don't know. Heck, you could do more. I don't know. You know, you might have been in really poor shape when you're 20, and now you're in great shape when you're 40. But for most of us out there, we may not be as athletic as we might have been, right? So, no, it is. You've got to respect one another's health and you know, any infirmities they may have, and work with that.
Right.
You know, find different ways around the problem, so to speak.
Yes.
You know what they say, Queen? If there's smoke in the attic, there's fire in the basement. Just say it.
Yeah, I agree.
I know this is going. Don't be afraid to laugh. Okay, you know when you first get together, how you're very nervous and anxious around one another. You know, if I would have took my clothes off and you would have busted out laughing, I would have took that as a bad sign. I don't know about anybody else out there, but I would have taken it as a bad sign. I probably would have ran.
Well, same here. If you'd have done the same, I would have ran.
But today, I mean, you know, sex should be just, it's about fun. It's about pleasure, fun, connection, emotion, all these wonderful feelings.
Right.
Laughter is part of it.
Well, you should be able to laugh in the bedroom. I mean, for pity's sake.
Well, heck yeah, because you'll never look more ridiculous in your whole life, especially if you're doing it right, in my opinion.
I think humor is very sexy. You know I do.
Well, see, that's why I tell some of my best material. And in between the laughter, I'm having a good time. No, make it fun. Sex should be fun. Yeah, I'm not talking about putting, banana cream pies in each other's face or anything, but,
Hey, if that's what they want, why not?
But if you're into banana cream pie, okay.
Well, you bet. You should experiment.
Speaking of which, that's my very next point.
Oh, see, there you go.
Don't be afraid to experiment.
That's right.
All right. Disclaimer. Don't be afraid to experiment within your comfort zone. Okay? If any experiment give you the willies, creeps you out, or whatever, don't do it.
I agree.
That can be a lot of different things, from role playing.
Right.
It could be adult novelties. It could be adult films, whatever floats your boat. As long as you're not hurting one another, it's in the privacy of your bedroom, you're not violating any laws.
Right. And you both agree to it.
And you both agree to it, and you're both comfortable with it, then you're not doing anything to be ashamed of.
No.
And you shouldn't be ashamed of it. Enjoy one another to their fullest. It's your business. It's your privacy. Speaking of which, keeping your mouth shut. I wrote that down there. There is nothing worse than to hear people either bragging about their sex life or crying about the lack thereof.
I know.
Does it creep you out if somebody starts asking you about your sex life? Let me ask you this question, Queen. Have you ever had a friend, that asked you about your sex life?
Well, honey, Neat and I was very close.
Okay,
we could talk about anything.
Was close. Okay,
right.
But did it still kind of weird you out to talk about it?
Not with her, no.
It's always creeped me out. I don't want to know about other people's sex life. I don't want to tell other people about my sex life.
Well, now, I think that's totally different than what I understood the question. Yeah.
Oh, really? What do you mean it's totally different?
Well, I think sometimes if you're friends and, she wants to ask questions about certain things, then I should be able to answer them.
Well, I'm not talking about sex in general. I'm talking about asking you specifically about your love life.
Well, no, we didn't.
Like how many times you and, Bruce there do the wild thing or whatever,
Well, if you're friends, I mean, that's
see, we're going to disagree.
No, listen.
Disagree.
Now listen.
Oh, no, I'm listening.
If she said, okay, because Nate and I used to always kind of, I don't know what the right word, but compare maybe. No, I didn't mean that.
Wow, you guys like taking notes?
No, it's just that sometimes, she would say, okay, well, how many times, do you guys and it's, and.
So you were comparing notes?
Well, I guess we were.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
Guys don't do that.
Well.
At least the ones I know don't do that.
Well.
So that's what you're saying. Right. That's a chick thing.
Well, at that particular time in my life, I mean, obviously,
Or she was just looking for validation.
I think that was probably it, validation. We were young, babes. We were just. We were in our 20s and early 30s, so I didn't know you then.
Okay,
so I've never told anybody about you, honey.
So now I'm upset. I feel cheated now.
I've never one time told anybody.
That's just great.
No.
That's just great. I'm not noteworthy.
Well, no. I wouldn't go out there and...
My feelings are bad.
I would not tell anybody what goes on in our bedroom because I think it's private.
Oh, they can tell when they see the Superman outfit anyway. Watch those two.
Goodness.
So I'm for keeping your mouth shut.
I am for keeping your mouth shut also.
I just think it's weird to ask somebody about their love life, and I think it's even weirder when somebody tells me about theirs. It just, I don't know.
I agree with that.
I think sex should be kept, private.
Right. I agree.
Nobody's business.
Well, I totally agree, and it could cause problems if you don't.
Well, I'll tell you what it does do. It breaks trust.
Oh, it definitely breaks trust.
You don't want to come across them because your husband just said all these horrible things about you, all the things you don't do, and blah, blah, blah. That'd make you mad.
Oh, that'd upset me terribly.
That could lead to all kinds of problems.
Yes,
I know I would feel not too happy to hear that, I was falling down on the job or whatever from a stranger or even a buddy of mine.
Right.
Just stop it. All right. So actually, we're getting pretty long on this show, so we're going to get ready to wrap it up. But I want to summarize.
All right.
That I think that couples that are together in a loving, trusting, and committed relationship can definitely enjoy a wonderful sex life way into their golden years.
I hope
until the minute they're ready to croak.
I would think so. I think as long as your health is... And
But the best kind of sex life is when both the emotional intimacy is combined with the physical intimacy. Mm-hmm. And that is what makes, I think, for a great sex life for a couple. And I think on that note, we're going to wrap up this week's installment of the Queen and I podcast. This is Bruce Naylor wishing everybody a great week. Queen, say goodbye to the good folks.
Goodbye, everyone.